going to read out a short note that I wrote so that I can also control the amount of time, because I notice it's 5:20 and probably most of you want to be at home. So here I begin. The resistance that was growing against the undemocratic institutional financing of equally undemocratically conceived projects, which resulted in calls such as, quote, 50 years is enough, unquote, has lost steam in recent years, when the movement to demand a, quote, net zero, unquote, future has become one that is guided by the very international financial forces, which in the very first place conceived a world order in which democracy was ritualized and spreading democracy became a useful mask for the imperial project. Global people's movements, which had the necessary clarity to four-stage sovereign democratic choices as a fundamental non-negotiable framework to arrange relationships between people, the state, and finance, are today receding into the backdrop of the landscape of conversations on the nature of finance and financial architecture, a regression that markedly similar to the regression of democratic political movements globally. Gaining strength in global, regional, and local platforms of negotiations are those voices which are comfortable with the compromise of sovereign decision-making, as is increasingly becoming mainstream in climate finance. As STS scholar and Harvard professor Sheila Jasanoff has said, the world today is being shaped by a movement towards carbon autocracy that climate finance today is. As a result, Prime Minister Narendra Modi can go to Glasgow, virtually perhaps, and state dramatically that he will ensure 500 gigawatts of energy produced in India will be from renewables, primarily solar, without, of course, having to worry about the consequences of that assertion. As a recent Current Science article has analyzed, a business as usual scenario in 2070 for 1.5 billion population would require 31,275 trillion watt hours per year of energy, demanding several-fold, at least four-fold capacity addition compared with consumption today. This transition that has been didactically decided, in a sense, to grandstand India as a global leader in the so-called just transition, demanded or was crafted out of the annual COPs, the climate change talks, a negotiation really of the shift of wealth of the super polluting, super rich as current day savants who will save this planet from doom. And it is being adjusted in a way that can happen not only without affecting their profiteering capabilities, but in fact building on their extractivist developmental paradigms that surely will benefit the top 1% and will now ensure their entrenched capabilities to influence political choices are cemented in ways that will concretize state-corporate relationships, leaving people to be subordinate to such private interest choices. Thus, the very idea of sovereign democratic choices born out of the democratic project enshrined in the UN Charter and the Constitution is increasingly suffocated by a rhetoric of just transition, which puts the very ideas of justice into the dustbins of contemporary history. Gautam Adani, therefore, can earn 6,000 crore every week and thus become one of the top billionaires of the world and the third richest Asian today, in a country that continues to be amongst the poorest globally. In fact, Indian billionaires gained $159 billion last year, of which Adani's share alone is $49 billion. And all of these billionaires undoubtedly are aligned to the nature of financial decisions that favor the current dispensation in power, which several HDI indicators reveal is high on rhetoric and bigotry, a majoritarian force that is out to construct a future that will render all constitutional values articulated in fundamental rights and directive principles redundant. In such a scenario, a question that begs attention is, what are people's movements and civil society doing in contesting this transition, which soon will become a juggernaut of political and social transformation that could be irreversible? When Modi was forced to repeal the farm laws last November, he did that by promoting the highly problematic zero-budget natural farming, a highly commercialized, commodified, corporatized transition of farming to natural farming, but which is fundamentally antithetical to sovereign choice of the farmer, that is the kernel of agroecology. For a more detailed analysis of that, I would welcome you to read an article that my colleague Bhargavi and I have written in the News Minute last November. We have shared it on many platforms. But sadly, several civil society and progressive farmers leaders do not see this fundamental contradiction and are content in sailing in this boat, a boat that is fueled by World Bank money, money from BNP Paribas, KfW, European Investment Bank, and a host of international financiers keen on globalizing India's food supply chain for the global market, with the farmers enslaved to the undemocratic farmer-producer organization, which will obviously become part of the cooperative movement that Home Minister Amit Shah wants to pilot. In much a similar way, national and international environmental movements have become content in negotiating within the framework of what Sheila Jasanoff terms as carbon autocracy. BlackRock can collaborate with Tata's, cross-hold in Azure or Adani Power, and promote their mega solar projects, gaining higher rate of return on investment than was possible from their rate of returns than was possible from their traditional investment in real estate. And this feeds positively into Modi's dream of 450 gigawatt of renewable energy production by 2030. What of the loss of millions of pastoral and farming livelihoods, of the loss of the great Indian bustard and even elephants due to these mega dreams? What is the use of energy production for profit that destroys livelihoods and nature? The utter lack of critical engagement with such casualties of mega energy and infrastructure development, which is being financed by international financial architecture of the day, is implicitly a surrender to the nature of such transitions. It is critical now more than ever before, therefore, to examine closely how global alliances are forming between people's movements and global financial architecture, with the intent of asking if indeed we truly care to structurally destabilize the prevailing hegemony global and international finance has, along with their propensity to grow geometrically even and in perpetuum over our inclusive paradigms and a paradigm of people-centered, nature-centered development. We are forfeiting in the process the very essence of sovereign democratic choices that is a crucial protective measure of human rights, natural resources, and the stability of the political economy and harmony of the world. Thank you.